Pause. It's time for the video game podcast where the Konami code is alive and well. The console wars don't exist. Rings are just as valuable as coins. Pots are not safe from swords. Giant robots kick ass. And fireballs are a perfectly acceptable weapon in a fist fight. That's right, it's time for the Super Gamer Bros podcast Ultra Hyper Alpha Super EX Double Impact Plus A Live. Settle in and let's get to gaming.
3, 2,
all right.
pitch. I was counting down. 3, 2.
Hey Gavin, can you?
You've got to do it men's world
all of
style.
you
You don't
guys.
say the last two.
Fuck all you guys.
5, 4, 3.
Welcome to this final episode of the week of Super Gamer Bros, where we are talking about When the Giants Fall. Fair warning, it is triggering conversations because we're dealing with Activision Blizzard and the entire fiasco that's come out about that. We're having conversations. We're not here to cause problems, but we will have ideas, thoughts that come to us as we talk. So please don't get angry. Join the conversation. So this is your trigger warning. Today's not going to be nearly as bad the past 3 days. We started talking about what happened, and we spent 2 days talking
I'm
about
here
Fallout.
now, after all.
And so I am one of your fun gamers, Slayton on Xbox. And finally, after he joined us mid-episode last episode, Cynic is back with us.
The fun bringer. Hello.
He says the fun bringer as his microphone decides to cut out like that.
Hey, well, I can hardwire this thing while
You
y'all.
should probably hardwire
continue.
that in the future.
Well, let me do it. I'll do it right now. While
Do
you're
that while we
introducing
introduce
our
our
lame
names.
ones.
El Guapo is not lame. Ready, Cassandra, let's do the theme song. And here comes El Guapo. Da-da-da-da-da. I like how he just sits there. Hey guys, what's up? Like, you need to walk in. Like, you need to like strut to the camera next time. Be like, what up? We gotta put some fireworks behind you. You know, at least get your kids with those little pop cannons. and
Waffle
confetti.
is not white, sir. I have to point out this to you.
What does that have to do with walking like a wrestler? Anyways, Cassandra.
What?
That was a bad joke. Welcome to
I
the show.
did. Look,
Um,
this has been a very intense week for us. I have to say that.
We're not usually this intense. We
Or
don't really
serious.
get political or serious very often, but when we do, it's pretty fucking intense.
I have to say, it's serious for me, and I'm nearly the serious one of the group.
Yeah. So we spent the past week talking about what's happening, and today, where do we go from here? What do we want to see happen with Activision that will cascade out? Because like I wrapped up the last show, this is the first domino. It needs to fall so the others will get in line, because I can't even imagine what goes on at EA or any of these other major companies that we don't know about, but we know about because Cassandra likes to tell us and make sure we're very well informed that the big players in the video game industry are fucked up. So let's start with you, Cassandra, since this was kind of your week to shine. What do you want to see happen?
Okay, before I say what's going to happen, we also need to point out that at the same time, roughly at the same time, all this went down, the French government, and their kind of version of what the California has, is suing Ubisoft for horrible work conditions and its own sexual assaults and allegations. And for those who want to put that in perspective, the French lawyers, the French legal body, will not prosecute unless they have a 99% sure they can win that case. So whatever it is they have on Ubisoft is hard enough that they believe they can win it flat out.
I bet you Ubisoft's going, there's that 1%, and we got Assassin's Creed. We'll make it France next time. Hey!
So what I would like to see, first, I would like to see every CEO down to a low rank. I want to see every managerial and HR person who was in charge of this fiasco fired, minus, and I'm going to put the minus here, minus anyone who has no allegations or was proven to try to stop it.
So the innocent people.
Yeah, the innocent bystanders, but everything from Bobby Kotick down need to be removed and have their stock options removed. Because, as you said, hold on, you said the people who benefit from this, as long as it's still going on, they'll continue going on. One of the things that Ubisoft has happened is they have fired a bunch of their sexual assault people, the people who have these allegations thrown against them, but they got to keep all of their stock options. So even if this company corrects itself, these people will still make money off of those corrections. And
I wonder how many of the executive leadership was actually involved. Like, I should go look this up, because does it cite people in this document?
It cites everything from Bobby Kotick, the CFO, the CEO, the CFO, the head of human resources, the co-head of human resources, and 3 major developers, 3 major project leads.
Because
that's page 21 of 29 that
those people are going to take down everyone with them. If they're going down, they're not going to go down nicely. So hopefully that'll drag in all the other fucking roaches and just clean house.
Okay. I think a 3rd and 4th party, just make sure that like there's a watcher of the watcher scenario, needs to come in and completely restructure the company.
Well, hold on. This is a tricky one, because you're bringing an outside person to restructure the company that's already been existing, and maybe it hasn't been the best environment, but it still works and produces things. Am I wrong in my thought process on this, Cynic?
Well,
it's like bringing in the efficiency expert who doesn't know your company.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you mean, and I think, at that point you really have to find qualified people within the company to try and fill that gap. And I think one of the only other things I wanted to mention was that we have to be careful with blanket statements like the CEO and down, just burn it. Now, one of the problems with, of course, the Me Too movement is that whenever you're dealing with a CEO or somebody who is powerful, who will coerce you into something like that, is that they're a victim because the CEO has power over them. And I don't think you have to have been a sexual assault victim to be a victim of, being threatened by a CEO.
That's interesting to bring that up.
I think there should be certain concessions for people who are, not directly involved, but they're let's say if they've seen something, but they're too afraid to say anything. I think depending on the person, like, you can't just burn everything down.
All right,
I think
so I want to go to
certainly anybody who's guilty, or anybody who's tried to keep it from getting out, or has been directly involved in, trying to stop things, or anything. If someone's conscience isn't clear completely, I mean, you got to be looked at, right? So
I want to go to Shaileek with this one.
It has to be a very careful kind of investigation before you cut everybody off, as well as their stock options, which I do see as valid punishment for the guilty, by the way.
All right, so I want to go to Shaileek with this one, because you weren't here in the episode where we were talking about the morality compass and raising children. And yes, there may be people who were pressured into doing that, but they still knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
What is your view on this, Shaileek?
So it comes back to my philosophy. I'm always gonna come back to it because I feel like this is the base of what I believe in. It's the morality versus action thing. It's like, you see all these things going wrong, right? You believe yourself it's wrong, but does that make you even worse? Because you're just like, I mean, like I said, you still have a job to do. You have people to take care of. I'm gonna quit. Like, let's say if you're a manager or a lead, right? You make 6 figures. You're like, I would do well for myself, my life. I'm just gonna quit this job, which we've already established. Once you quit a job under less than, let's say, not reasonable, but like
reputable, maybe.
Exactly. Reasons, you're pretty much blackmarked. Like, you're blacklisted. So it's like, I'm gonna ruin my entire life to support a cause, which most people believe. Like, this, we can honestly agree with this. They believe it's not even worth the fight because the Giants always stand tall. So it's like that makes them the villain because they don't have the wherewithal to just, you know what I'm saying? Because like, everyone wants to say, oh, do the right thing, until you have to do the right thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If a man walks into a bank and is robbing the bank, it's wrong, right? But who are you to be like, oh, instead of getting down like I should, I'm a bad person for not trying to get the gun out of his hand. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things.
It's also because Phil, my husband, works for CPS. He was an investigator. In CPS, if you know there's a problem and you don't report it, you are just as guilty. That's why there's court mandated people that like teachers and that they have to report it.
But they also have to prove. They also have to prove that they knew, because anyone
Yeah,
can say.
it's very
I mean,
obvious though when they know. Like you think that's complicated, but these investigators know. Your neighbors see how you treat your children. Like my mom could see those kids locked in a room all day in dirty diapers because they were at the window, so she had to call.
Yeah.
She was concerned about it, but had she not called and those investigators saw my mom walking up and down with her dog, she would have been guilty. You could see inside this window that these kids crying every day.
But now you're talking about. But now you're talking about the realm of legal stuff, which is very complicated because it's not that cut and dry.
Well,
It is that cut and dry in a lot of cases.
You've brought up a good point, though. So Phil did used to work for CPS, which did monitor child abuse, and you're supposed to, report that sort of thing. There's no, as far as I know, there's no government entity that sends somebody in just to protect employees for companies or protect employees of sexual harassment. There's HR, but HR is still within the control of the company.
You walked in the Cassandra trap. Let's go, Cassandra.
Haha, I get to play Yu-Gi-Oh! You walked into my trap. There literally is a cup. There is multiple. Even at a federal level, there is a group. In California, it is the Equal Work and Housing Administration. That's the one that's currently suing Blizzard. Texas has one, but Texas has got no teeth, and it's a fair right to work state, so it literally has no teeth. There is, although
teeth. There we go.
Teeth, but unfortunately, it'll never have teeth because it's also a Republican-led group. Federal-wise, yes, there is an administration of worker rights that are constantly being, if you listen to certain groups, have too much power. There is a federal group that literally watches over workers' rights and things. That's basically what part of OSHA is. OSHA mandates safety. There's another group that mandates protection and workers' right and safety.
True, but I mean I think the difference is the difference here is that California has their own group, Texas has their own group. They all have their varying degrees of power. There's but there's not like, no matter where you are, no matter in what state, call CPS. Okay, now they might not be able to get anything done right away. They might not even be able to get anything done, but hey, call CPS if there's a problem there. At least you'll have it on record, and at least the government gets involved at that point. For something on a more broad scale like that. There's
like not a knowledgeable thing to reach like 911.
It's not something people know about. Like everyone knows.
And the reason being is because there's no emphasis on it. There's no. It's just not widely known, and it's not marketed, and there's.
Which is how they want it to be. They don't want
that's a great point. So there you go.
All right. So next up on the things we want to see happen, Cassandra, you're talking about something about the HR department.
Yeah, the HR department needs to also be completely replaced. Activision's HR department was literally run by basically people whose entire job was to protect Activision. It wasn't to protect the workers. Literally, their idea was to protect. This also happened with Ubisoft. It was to protect the company's interests. If you had a problem,
this is a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
So also
let me tell you why.
The third party, fourth party needs to be involved with that.
I understand that, but let me tell you why.
Okay.
State of Texas, the employees don't have an HR department. It's a contracted HR department that doesn't deal with anything. You have to call a 1-800 number. It's all forms, and they don't deal with anything in a timely manner.
Nope.
So that's why HR departments need to be something that's internal, because you can't farm this out. It needs to be very timely. And I don't know how to handle this, honestly, because there really isn't a good option for an HR department. Because these contract options, I don't know why you would ever contract out your HR department to a company, to people in a division that doesn't even work for you, who doesn't know your policies, it can't handle things because they're just one of 10 clients.
I can answer that right now. I can answer that question right now.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
So it's the same. It's the same reason you have what's it called? That's
called sex.
I can't remember the word, but basically it's always like a group of people. Like, okay, I'm gonna use cops, right? So cops have cops, right? You have detectives, you have cops, but they have an actual team of people whose one
Investigators.
job is to investigate cops, and they can't be within the ranks of the cops. Because, like, put it this way, it's just like how she mentioned earlier. If you're a company who's doing bullshit and if the HR company is literally being run by that bullshit, nothing's ever going to work. So you have to have an entity that come from somewhere else, because it's not about the policies. It's about, hey, we're not going to do what you want to go in your favor. So you have to have you have to always have an outside body thing to do, because that's how you keep the balance. They're not there for the company. They're there strictly for like, we've all watched The Office. Remember that one douchebag who's always like, you've never watched The Office? Okay, you're weird.
I got
Like,
better shit to do with my time.
There's always this one guy, he's like, oh, we can't do this, Michael. We can't do this, Michael. And he doesn't even work with The Office. He doesn't work with, like, in the show. He doesn't work for Dunder Mifflin. He just works, he's the HR guy. So that's what it's always like. It's always like, you want someone who does not part of the crew, so they can't be like, oh, we can just manipulate you into doing what we want, so this never leaves. You have to have an outside source every time.
And when I say, by the way, when I'm talking about these, a third party needs to come, a third, fourth party needs to come in and restructure. A third, fourth party needs to come in and make up the new HR department. I'm not even talking about having it as a 1-800 number that you call, because I have that. I work for a major retail parts company. I sell car
You
parts.
understand the pain.
Right. I lost over half of my vacation time 1 year because of a mistake. A button was pressed, and they never gave it back to me. I couldn't take my 1 week vacation because I lost my entire vacation time to an asshole.
All right,
And
so
what I'm
we
saying
need to
is,
start wrapping this up.
these companies need to be formed. The last thing I want to see is all the money that these guys would have made because of all this bullshit given to the victims and the families of the victims, particularly the one who committed suicide, as pure compensation, including to the people who had their lives nearly ruined because they're not being paid. And these, like, Bobby Kotick does not need another $156 billion bonus from all of the stuff that's going to be either proven or disproven. And again, California probably has the same mentality as France. They're not going to make this big case unless they have enough evidence to prove at least more than half of it.
So I agree, but I don't think money is going to solve these problems. These people need to pay more than that. They need to be paying out of their pocket, and they need to be going to jail. There needs to be actual, real consequences that aren't monetary, because they're just going to wipe it off. They've got lots of money. But when you actually hit them far deeper in their pocketbook and far deeper in their lifestyle, that's when people start to take notice that there's real repercussions and consequences.
Well, the thing is, it's a sad truth, but the reason why things get so hard and why evil still exists is because the system that we live in allows it to prosper. Let's just say they do go to jail. Well, guess what? We're going to use, what's his name? The one that, Mr. Epstein, right? He technically went to jail. But guess what? He spent most of his time going to work and him leaving his cell to go to work. So it's like, it doesn't matter what you really do. You can put him in for 20 years. They're going to put him in a cozy little spot away from everybody else.
They need to make an example of this.
Or they'll get out. Or
They'll
just get out on a technicality a la Cosby.
Exactly, because it's not. It's bigger than like I like to use your term. This is about the old guard. This is the 4 guys who control time and space type shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like unless you get those guys out, it's always going to be this way.
This is the opportunity to start taking those guys out.
There's plenty.
You put them in actual jail.
I got an example for you. Here, you got woman suffrage. You got MLK. Like, there's been plenty of opportunities, and look where we are now. We're in the same.
Yeah, place. But we're in a much different mentality today with more people understand. No. Yes,
there's newer.
There's
newer people like you who are changing the culture, but the mentality will always be the same.
There's more people changing the culture today than back in the day, because back in the day it was unheard of. We didn't know a whole lot about ourselves.
It's not about the change of it. It's more of being known. It's about education. The reason we have BL, the Black Lives Matter.
Exactly. We have all that today because we understand better now.
But just because you understand,
we have to make an example of these people, and this is the prime time an opportunity to make an example.
who's
You're
the-
not
that's
getting
the-
out of this.
They're-
You're not paying your way out of this. You lost all your money. You're going to jail.
Who's the we?
They're never going to lose all their money.
It's not such normal people.
I understand that, but it is in California. There's likely to be someone who, and the judge or the jury who are like, you know what, you're done.
I will say this: if they end up in jail, it's going to be that Martha Stewart jail that she was
Exactly.
in. It's going. They will lose this year's money, but they
No,
still
no, no,
have.
no, because it's not a federal crime. That's where you go to the Kashi jails. It's an actual like felony crime that these people are committing.
No, what she's talking. Yeah, when you go to federal prison, that's what she's saying. They have these. They're called.
They're the Kashi ones, but those are the ones who are like. They're like these are actual. I mean, those aren't like real crimes.
No. These are real. Epstein he got charged. That was.
I understand that, but
Gavin,
this is like crime against. This is like what is it?
There's only two prisons.
There's
county
a
jail and there's prison. Yeah.
There's a federal prison for people who make over a certain money. This is a real thing because it's called a.
I know it's a
private
real thing, but
it's called a private prison.
This could now be the time to change that. Go
you can't
California.
change that.
Yes, you can change that because this isn't like money crimes. This isn't business crime. This is humanitarian crimes.
So I got a question for you. When you speak of change, do you mean in the forefront of your existence or your grandkids?
It has to start somewhere.
It has to start somewhere. Yeah.
By the time to be honest with you, I hate to be a pessimist.
We're not going to see it.
We're not going to see it.
But I would like to see those dominoes start.
Your grandkids will probably, by that time, will be able to see it. And
that's a relatively short amount of time.
It's really not all that long, but at least we have gotten this shit started.
Yeah.
We are not going to continually go backwards with these old fucking white men and their old power grabs.
Well, and we can't have the mentality of nothing's going to happen or else why bother having the conversation at all? Like if we're having a conversation, that means that means you can spread the conversation and hopefully
I base it off the reality of the life we lived. I mean, look at us, right? We all come from we're similar in age, but there's people older in this group, right? So it's like you've seen it. I
like how you're looking at me.
We all have, we all have knowledgeable of history, right? But it's like we can always say there will be change, but change may I use the easiest thing to talk about, race, right? How long has America existed and racism is still a thing? Will that ever probably go away? We may never know. You know, there's a lot of things we can say we want to go away or that change.
But we have to encourage the generation. Your teenager's already on that path. I'm sure Cynic's daughter is going to be on that path. That's the important part.
I always believe. I'm going to use the old guard because I feel like it's the best way to use it. The old guard is going to give you enough to coddle you, but it'll always be the same.
I think the new generations aren't falling for that shit anymore.
I will say this. I'm using a term right now called the quiet strike. You know how like the fast food and a lot of industries right now are having trouble getting workers because they're not paying them.
Yeah.
I'm calling it the quiet strike. They're striking. People are not going to get jobs at places that aren't paying them until those places start paying. Respect them or pay them. Biggest thing is pay.
Yeah.
If they start paying them, they'll find workers. Every place that's gone up on their wages has gotten workers. That's why it's called the quiet strike, because there's not a line, there's not a picket line, not physically visibly. But if you're not willing to gel out the cash, you're not willing to get the workers.
It's also just changing workplace policies, and I hope this really does. But with quiet strike, we are now out of time for this show. We were really long, which is okay. And we got everything that we want to talk about, and we're not going down any more weird-ass tangents. We had enough tangents this week. So thank you guys for joining in with this entire week. We'll probably do some more follow-ups eventually when all this starts to, figure itself out in court. It's going to be really interesting to watch.
I think it's going to be interesting to watch what happens in France and both in California. I think it looks like both cases might be going off at the same time. So it will be interesting to see what becomes of the French case and Ubisoft and the Connect California case against Activision.
I'll tell you right
That's
now, I believe they're gonna do enough to appease people similar to Pocky, not as hardcore as Pocky, and it's gonna be enough to keep people quiet, and that's it. It's gonna keep on going. And it's actually a statistic that the public eye's attention is only lasts 6 months. So yes, for 6 months they're gonna get shit. After that, it's like it never happened.
Well, we'll see. We're gonna definitely revisit this. So
I would
stay tuned.
Also, 6 months is better than nothing.
Person in the room.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We'll be back with you guys. New episodes next week. And remember to like, subscribe, share, love us online. Show us some love, y'all. We work hard doing this, and we have lots of fun doing this. And this was a very intense week. We're not always this intense. Usually we're pretty happy and jovial and making jokes and being stupid, but not always. Fair warning.
Cynic, before we start,
Yeah.
I don't know if I heard your child in the background screaming. Is mom home?
For a second, yeah, you did.
Okay.
He put her in
She's-
baby jail.
She's fine. Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't
She's
worry
in
about it.
baby jail with some Cheetos.
I love, I want to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you cared enough that you waited I don't know how long before bringing it up.
Which, Cynic, when you do watch these episodes, we did throw you under the bus in episode 2. Because of all of us, you were the only straight white male, so you've got to be our defenders against the world that wants to attack us.
Yeah, you can. I can represent to everybody who you're talking to, who you are informing, and will also have an opinion, which mine will always be aggressively middle of